I felt like I was beginning to understand in that moment what loving myself truly meant. And it was something that I never really felt before. And I said, I can't leave. I can't stop this right now. I can't just leave and go home. I have to stay and let this process unfold, whatever it is. So I looked for work, and I looked for a place to stay, and I found a place to stay. And I decided that because I found a place to stay so quickly, that I was going to stay for a while and continue my time in Sefad, and that I could not go home right away. So it was interesting. I went to a Shabbos evening at this rabbi and rebbetzin, the Marzels, and they also have family here in the Albany region. Rachel Rubin is the sister of Sarah Marzel, the rebbetzin. And it was very interesting because the rabbi shared that evening that the gematria, for some reason...
The numerical value, just translating for you. All right, go ahead.
The numerical value, for some reason it was part of his Devar Torah, or his explanation of the Torah for that week, that the numerical value of Sha'arim, or Shar, okay, gate, which is 570, is the same as the gematria or numerical value of Sefad. And again, I got goosebumps, and I said, "Wow,
this is where you're supposed to be."
I can't. I really can't leave. So, Sefad is an absolutely amazing place.
Let me interject. I'm sure that people, your idea of the numerical value, just for a half a minute, that in Hebrew letters, Aleph is the first letter is 1, Beis second letter is 2, and onward. So each of the Hebrew letters has a numerical value. And what the rabbis have done throughout the years, very interestingly, that even though two words seemingly do not at all connect, like what's a city named Sefad and a gate have to do with each other, if you would throw out these two names, you say, I don't see any connection. But in their Hebrew lettering, even though there's totally different Hebrew letters, but they add up just like different, you know, you can obviously have 3, 4 different numbers add up to the same total in English, in normal arithmetic. So too, even though they're totally different letters, they add up to the same amount of numbers. And therefore the rabbis say, hey, the numbers here, the number of the letters are added up here are the same, and they're there the same. So therefore there really is a connection, even though you wouldn't see it's like a, you know, like a code. That's what a code is. You know, you'll see something. Someone will tell you the red banner is flying over the green house, and it means gibberish to you, but to someone else, that's a deep code. You know, it's coded. So that's how the rabbis find deeper explanations. One of the ways in the Hebrew words by seeing they have the same numerical value. All right. You might want a minute explanation of numerical value. No, but that's it shows. There's a deeper connection. Even though it's seemingly not connected, but through that numerical value, they're saying, hey, there's a big connection there.
Oh, I'm glad that what I'm sharing seems to be meaningful, that it's bringing up, you know, important information. So I'm just trying to remember where I was.
So you were talking about the Sefad and the gate, and I wanted to stay there then.
So I knew I really had to stay. And
so you stayed the rest of the time in Sefad. Now you spent 1 month in Jerusalem, and the other 3 months about whatever in general.
Yes, yes. And right. I also found out, also interestingly enough, discussed in the Tanya is the, which is the
basic work of
Chassidus.
The Chabad Chassidus. Good.
Discussed in Tanya are the 4 elements, as they are discussed in other cultures as well. it was very interesting to find out that the element of Sfat is air. I also learned that Yerushalayim is fire, Tiberias is water, and Hebron is earth. So I was lucky to be able to go to 3 out of the 4 holy cities. I was in Yerushalayim and blessed to go to the Kotel many, many times. I also was in Tiberias and waded a little bit through the Kinneret, even though it was cold. And then when I was in Sfat, people had told me, oh, you'll love Sfat. You'll fit right in Aviva. But don't stay too long because you'll fly away. Because my element, astrologically, is also air.
You knew that from before, you mean, you're saying?
Yeah. No, people had told me, because I'm very airy, that I'll float away.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing was that it made me much more focused and strategic. And my theory about that is that, in a sense, it's like homeopathic. That when you're in your element, that's when you're most in sync. That's when you're most centered. And I really found that there. It was so amazing and so beautiful. I have to say, in some ways, there's some sadness there. A lot of the construction, a lot of the homes have deteriorated, have been left neglected. But overall, the energy is so high, so amazing. You can feel the energy almost like seeping out of the cobblestone rocks when you walk down these cobblestone paths. And it's like a miniature world. No matter what path you take, no matter what road you take, it leads to somebody and some really interesting conversation. And you can see that there's people, all types, of all levels of religious observance are drawn to Sfat. And you really kind of have a variety of different people to interact with. There's a very large population that is Chabad there. There's also Sons and Breslov. And it's just very, very interesting to be there. The mountains are unreal. They're so beautiful. The apartment that I have been staying in overlooks Meron. And just to be able to stand out on my marpeset, or porch, I'll translate porch, and overlook the mountains, you can't help but be awestruck and be grateful instantly. It's so unbelievably beautiful. And the thing that amazed me was, I truly believe that the mountains and the land in Israel, especially in Sfat, for me, have a higher consciousness. In America, I feel very privileged and grateful to be here and for everything that I've had in my life. But I have to say, I actually feel like the land in Israel, the land particularly in Sfat, loves me. Like it knows I'm there. Like it knew my scent. My own personal scent or smell before I came, and that it spoke to me when I came and said, oh, it's you. I know you. Welcome. It's so good to see you. And it instantly let me know, the land instantly let me know how much it loves me, and that I am, and that it was happy for me to be there. And so I would say that 5% of the time before I went to Israel, I actually felt like maybe God loved me.
Oh, that's such a
I
holy
would
thing,
say
yeah.
that 90% of the time now, I feel like God loves me. And that was from taking myself to Israel. It was probably the best decision I have ever made for myself in my life. And I have a hard time making decisions. And so this is when I feel good about. The people there in the community are wonderful. I would say that the community in Albany, in the Tri-City area, the Orthodox community, is just as wonderful or more. And I've had so many amazing, supportive and loving interactions and relationships with people in Albany. But the community there is just also very supportive, very loving. I met a rabbi, Rabbi Turnick, who reminded me of my grandfather and was a farmer like my grandfather and a cattleman. He was a Chabad cattleman who, yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, just like it's so funny because you don't find farmers, and I know in Israel, I mean, the agricultural, needs are not, so you don't, and in America, a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, that's how, what's a Jewish person being a farmer, but right. There, it's like it's a different kind of lifestyle.
He had a ranch for years
really?
With his wife, and then he became Orthodox and became a Chabad rabbi, and now he's a sofer. And he has his shop.
A sofer is a scribe, again, using a scribe, because it's a special art, because you have the Torahs, they're not just printed up on a printing press or a mezuzah, that you hang those little parchments on the door, or to fill in the men where the phylacteries, they always have to be handwritten, and it's not just anybody could write any Hebrew. I mean, it takes a grammar school child, but it's special. First of all, you have to be these are holy things, so that it's not just they need somebody to write, but number two, it's a very special shape. So we had a sofer on before, once a long time ago, maybe we would bring again, but in any case, that it's a very special art. And it's not just an art, I mean, it's a holy profession, because they're writing holy things.
Right. And it's very interesting to walk into his shop and watch him writing. And any moment you want to talk, you can always stop by the main square where he works and sit down. And he says, "Pull up a chair. You know what's going on." And so he's become a mentor to me. He and his wife. The other interesting things about Sefat that I can think of, I have been sharing an apartment with a young woman that goes to Machon Alta. And that is a Chabad women's seminary in Sefat that is also very wonderful, and I've had the privilege to be able to take some courses at the seminary there. And then, of course, Sefat has an amazing artistic community.
And that's what it's known for, it's so much art. I guess because it just lends itself, the way you're describing it, so mystical, and so, the mountains, it just lends itself to a artist colony.
Right, and in fact, in the mountains, they have special areas where, like right in the mountain, they'll set up a stage and have a concert playing.
Really?
In fact, I'm pretty sad that I'll be missing Lag BaOmer there, because they have apparently a 3-day festival where they have, I think last year, they had approximately 500,000 Jews come, or Jewish people, excuse me, come to Meron and celebrate Lag BaOmer, where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is buried. And I'll be enjoying Lag BaOmer here with my Albany family. But the other thing is that, yes, artistically, there is a lot of visual artwork that is created there, as well as musical art. And like at Ascent, the place where I've stayed at first when I came to Sefat, there's always live free concerts going on, experimental concerts, musicians experimenting and developing new techniques and combining, creating new nigim,
new tunes. Again, just translating for your Hebrew. You've been living in Israel for 4 months, but just for people, Nigunim are just Hasidic tunes or deep spiritual tunes. And it's very nice. That sounds like that's a very spiritual place. Art and music. Right. I mean, I guess it lends itself to those kind of things. I mean, the art is of good quality, and when you have people there, I mean, it's known people, the candles, everybody, so people who don't know, I mean, again, Sefad's candles are very special. You buy candles from Sefad. Again, that's more of an artistic kind of thing in the art galleries. But, I mean, you've been there, so describe it.
The candle factory is really interesting because when you walk in, they have different, how should you say it? They have different scenes that they've created with candles. And they'll have different scenes from Torah that they've actually taken and created candles out of the scenes to show, different stories from the Torah.
Trouble is, I always find these nice candles. Who wants to burn them down, though, I mean, then what are you going to do? Put a match to it? And I just always feel bad to, I'll never use them, because...
It probably would be crazy to light a match to them because they're too beautiful. Maybe on Lag BaOmer.
Yeah.
But, and so there's a whole artist quarter where there's almost like a tunnel that you walk through, and there's many different artist shops. And they're sometimes there's some small family-owned, obviously most of them are family-owned, and just some really, really beautiful, beautiful pieces of artwork, a lot of Kabbalistic work. One particular artist that I absolutely thought was spectacular and loved his name is David Friedman. And he does Kabbalistic art.
Oh, very interesting.
And his art, he actually uses geometrical shapes and gematria, numerical values, and the Hebrew letters. And really, his work is almost like an expression of healing. I wish I brought some here today to show. There's also another artist that is just fantastic. His name is Gadi Dedan. He grew up in Bnei Brak, and he grew up in a very religious home, and then moved to Sfat and kind of to find his own path. And his work is so unbelievably fantastic. I spoke to him, and he said that what he's trying to do is bring out the light, find the divine spark, and bring it out in every piece that he has, so that if you put one of his pieces of art in a dark room, it doesn't do it justice. If you put it in a room where there's just one little patch of light beaming through the window, and it hits, just one patch hits his work, the whole piece almost just explodes, and it just looks like it's filled with light, and it looks real. He has one particular piece of his friend playing the flute, and there's a stone wall of Jerusalem stone behind him. And when the light hits the Jerusalem stone, you just see that the wall almost comes straight out at you, and it looks real. And then the top of his kippah looks, it just gives it a whole different dimension. There's another artist named Ben Avraham Nachmani, who's won 2 national awards for his work, and his work is inspired by Marc Chagall. So he has a lot of Kabbalah, he combines almost like Kabbalah with these floating figures, and he creates like a harmony. One particular piece I loved was of a Hamsa, or the hand that's supposed to be meant to ward off the evil eye or any negative energy in Judaism, or as part of Jewish mysticism. And he has a wedding going on, and a simcha with klezmer musicians playing around their music around the wedding. And he also has within the fingers, he creates the inner fingers in the shape of a shin and the outer 2 fingers in the shape of doves, because he is big on promoting peace. And actually his work has been given to the Israeli government as gifts for that reason. And then, and within the hand, he has this wedding going on, and he also creates Torah scrolls and creates a picture of Yerushalayim, and within Yerushalayim he kind of carefully, secretly puts Torah scrolls within Yerushalayim. And it's hard to explain, of course, without showing it.
Sorry. It's fascinating. No, it's very good. You explained it well, but we're out of time. That's the trouble here.
And I was worried I was going to be too nervous to say anything.
I'm sure you have a lot more to say, so next time you go to Israel, you'll just have to come back and fill us in again. But I just again want to thank Aviva Rossman for sharing her experience in her trip to Israel. Thank you very much, Aviva. Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar. We have a very special guest with us today, Ms. Chana Kader. Welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you.
Now, Chana is a local artist. She also teaches in the Niski Unit Public Schools, but right now we're going to be talking about art. So, you have a lot of paintings here, actually, very many number of paintings, if we can get to them all, hopefully. Number one, we'd like to see them, and number two, we'd like to have a little explanation behind all of them. I see, when I was just breezing through them, they're really mainly a Jewish theme, though.
That's right. Yes, I paint only Jewish subject matter.
That's interesting why you got into specifically that over here.
Yeah, well, it was about, I'd say about 10 years ago that I was looking through Yehudit Chadur's book of paper cuts. She, finds these paper cuts, restores paper cuts, and I started to look at them, and I loved them, and I thought, well, maybe I could do this, so I started to do the paper cutting. And I noticed that a lot of the old paper cuts from the 17th century and so on, from the Pale of Settlement, were painted.
Any Jewish painting from that?
Yeah, they painted their paper cuts. For example, this one right here is just a plain white and with a background, okay? A lot of people do paper cuttings like this, but the ones from the Russian Jewish Pale, that area, a lot of them were painted. Mizras.
I didn't know that there was so much, art going on in the 1600s.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. I saw all the, I've been to Judaic museums, and you see, like, Judaic things in the synagogue and the temple. I don't know, just for their artists, there was a lot of
there was
Jewish
a lot
art.
of what they call it naive art or folk art, that was done. So I just thought it was beautiful, and I thought I'd give it a try, and so that's what I did. But I can show you some of the ones that I...
Yeah, we'd like to.
Okay. This is just one, for example. I get my ideas from those paper cuts from the 17th and 18th century, and this is a Hamsa, of course, and there's a couple little prayers, which I have a translation for.
Just explain, like, Hamsa to our audience. These are, what are they, like, good luck charms in a way?
Yeah,
maybe
it's good
that's the
luck
way
charms. They're meant to ward off the evil eye, if I have that right. So what I would do is I would cut this. I would cut it all out. Actually, before I drew on the Hamsa, what I would do is I would have the paper folded in half. Okay, it's kind of like symmetrical, and I would cut out my design that I drew on, and then I'd leave this part blank, and then in the end I would draw it, because if this was folded over, you'd have two thumbs.
Yeah,
right.
These people could see. I mean, there's a hand in the middle. That's a Hamsa. Sometimes they're little, jewelry. You see those hands all over the place. If you can key in into the middle over here, I'm observing it myself. Just to explain the Hebrew. Shomer, on the right-hand side, Shomer Hashem is Kolo Avav. Hashem watches over, the Almighty watches over all His loved ones. And on the left tablet says it should remove the Satan from before us and behind us, which again, like we were saying, is like a good luck charm to ward off the evil spirits, that kind of idea.
Right, so I tried to keep in with the same theme, and then I put little shtetl people around it, the little village people. And, when it was all done, I just painted. So that was an example of one. And here's something similar. These little characters, that I painted on here actually come from a book that it's David Guberman, I think. He has a book called Carved Memories, and it's the stones, the actual gravestones, and they have a lot of these fantastic little creatures on.
This is European kind of art?
Yes, yes, yep.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so I like the concept of never forgetting something, you know. It's a pretty Jewish concept, and I like to put these little characters back in so that people will always be able to see them and remember them. And of course they were on gravestones, so I painted them. I have no idea what color they should be, so that's out of my imagination. But again, this is a symmetrical one where the paper was folded in half, and after I cut it out, I would go back and just paint little designs on it, little birds and leaves. So, and there's another one that has some of the Jewish holidays on it. And it starts over this way because we read from left to right. So
right to left.
Yeah, or right to left.
Right.
I don't know my right from left yet. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur,
Just let me explain. You have just for the people who are not familiar. Rosh Hashanah top. I'm going from like Hannah just said, top right to top left. Rosh Hashanah, you see in the middle. There's the shofar. That's the ram's horn that we blow on Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur is very beautiful. This gives the education, the Jewish education also. Yom Kippur is the second one from the right, which is the book are open. That's the book of life and the book of death that everybody is signed, sealed, and hopefully for good for the rest of the year. Third one is Sukkot. In the middle you see an esrog, which is a citron, and the lulav and esrog, which is the palm branch, and the myrtle and the willow. That's the mitzvah. Jewish people hold that for 7 days on Sukkot. The next holiday, there's a Torah. That's Simchas Torah. It actually says, I see on the top, Simchas Torah, the happiness of the Torah. We dance around the Torah. We complete the full cycle of the 5 books of Moses. I'm on the bottom right now. Hanukkah, you see a full menorah with 8 candles. People familiar with that. Purim, there's a little bitty scroll in the middle because we read the Megillah, the book of Esther on Purim. Pesach, you see in the middle, the Passover is the 4 cups of wine, and then Shavuos, which is the holiday when